and let's move on to the pre-recorded talks. And I have one question about the third talk. Is the author or any of the co-authors here to Masako Wada's talk? Okay, so maybe we have to skip the last one. So let's move on to the first pre-recorded talk, and that is by Floor Beemans. It is about modeling transmission of Mycobacterium avium subspecies paratuberculosis between Irish dairy herd. So please, Floor, could you give a brief summary of that talk?
Yes, so I hope you can see my screen right now.
Yes.
So in this talk, I presented how we model transmission of Johne's disease between Irish dairy herds. And in this model, we simulate disease within dairy herds and also between dairy herds. And between dairy herds, transmission is modeled via the trait of animals or infected animals. And the model is data-driven, which so it includes about 11,000 dairy herds in Ireland, and we have 10 years of data. And in the talk, I present like four different things. First, that we investigated like what happens if you start infection in a different set of herds. So, for example, in herds that are most likely to be infected or less likely to be infected. And then I showed that it matters in which herd you start the infection. It has an effect on the results. Then secondly, I presented that the probability for a herd to be infected increases when a herd buys more animals. Third point that I presented was that herds that escape infection purchase no or very few animals. And the last point was that herds that experience multiple rounds of infection and followed by fade out, they buy and sell on average twice as many animals as other herds. And it could be that that they are selling their infected animals. So that were the most important points I presented.
Thank you, Floor. So that was very, very interesting. And let's see if we have any questions in the audience. I cannot see any. Yes, we have from Elisabetta, please.
Yeah, thank you. I had a question concerning the results. So on the main determinants of the epidemic dynamics. I mean, yeah, the local determinants. So you said that the average number of animals bought is an important point, and also so I was wondering, this was also something that was found in French data by Gaël and collaborators, as you know. And so my question was, do you think, is this something generic, or because you work on Irish data? And so finally, we can say this for any network that respects some topological features, or what's your feeling about this?
Yeah, so what's interesting in Irish dairy herds compared to the French dairy herds is that the Irish dairy system is quite different, because it is totally based on it's a seasonal system. So all the cows are born in the spring, and then they grow up to so like all the young animals grow up together and are born in spring, while in France they are born all year round. And also there's you see some effect that it has some effect on also like the trading patterns in herds, so that sometimes there are periods within the year where more animals are traded compared to other times in the year. And in France, you see that it's more evenly spread over the year. So even with those differences in the dairy system, the results are quite similar. So yeah, so I think maybe it's true that we can say that like indeed, if you buy more animals, your probability to be infected is higher, irrespective of like how the whole country interacts, all the herds interact with each other.
Okay, maybe, yeah, maybe we need to explore other types of networks or other types of dynamics, but yeah, it seems that it's something that is generic. And also, you found also that the herds that don't buy any animal, they are not affected, which is quite intuitive. And I was wondering why you included these herds into the metapopulation, because they exchange, they receive animals, and why was the reason that you included them finally?
So, well, it's true that the herds that are not purchasing any animals have a very low risk to be infected, of course, because they are not in any animals. But it's not that all the herds that stay free of infection are not buying animals. So there are herds that stay free of infection, and they are still buying animals, although the number is very low on average. And those are actually the interesting herds, because you want to know, like, what are those herds doing to keep infection out, or is it just by chance that?
Yeah, you're right. I see. So this is an interesting point. You're right.
Exactly.
But finally, why having included the ones that do not purchase?
Yes. So those herds are selling animals. So even if they are not purchasing any animals.
Yeah, this is a reason.
Because in the beginning we didn't know in which herds we wanted to like initialize with infections. So at the start in 2009, we had to like select some herds to infect.
Okay.
When we infected herds at random, those herds could also be infected as well.
Okay.
And by that, they could spread infection to other herds. Herds that were closed, so that were not buying or selling any animals, were excluded from the data set.
Okay, thank you.
We have one question in the chat from Colin.
Okay.
So the question is, do you have data on cases of disease to inform your seeding of infection?
No, we do not. So that would be nice if you would know which herds were infected and what would be the prevalence within those herds. It would be like you could realistically model how the disease is spreading. But yeah, we don't have this data. No.
So any other questions in the audience? So I have a question. We talked earlier, I mean, Caroline talked about this social aspect of communicating the information that you learn from this modeling. Is that something you have done here, like communicating with the farmers and have discussions?
Not with farmers, but like we communicate regularly with the Animal Health Service in Ireland, because they will use the results of this work like to guide our policy decision making. Yeah, so not with farmers themselves, but with Animal Health Service. Yeah.
So they're changing the policies based on.
Well, I won't say changing, but they at least use the results here that are produced here to inform them and well, make decisions based on this. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. I cannot see any more questions in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Or I don't see any hands up either. So thank you so much, Floor. That's a very nice summary of your talk. So then we have, I think we're a little bit ahead of time, but the next, so I have to find my notes here. So the next talk is by Claire Hautefeuille from the University of Montpellier in France, and she will present evaluation of vaccination protocols against avian influenza in French broiler production network using a transmission model. So please, Claire, could you give a brief summary of your presentation?
Yeah, thank you, Stefan. Can you hear me and see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, great. Thank you. So hello, everyone. Thank you. I would like to thank the organization committee for giving me the opportunity to present my work today. So this work is on the evaluation of vaccination protocols against avian influenza in the French broiler production network using a transmission model. To make a summary of this work, we first define different vaccination protocols using the broiler network description. And these protocols considered the fact that if vaccination was applied at the hatchery or farm level, also we consider if the vaccination focused on the free-range production or also including the indoor production. And finally, we also tested all these different vaccination protocols in presence or in absence of maternal immunity. To compare these different vaccination protocols, we used a stochastic descriptor and compartmental model. And this work highlights the importance to consider the presence of maternal immunity and to include the indoor production in the vaccination protocols. So to make a brief summary, the work we've developed a model which allows to compare different vaccinations protocols with a structure easy to adapt to other poultry sectors. So I will stop here for now. If you want more information, please watch my video. And if you have any question, I will be happy to answer it. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire, for a nice and concise summary. So let's see if we have any questions in the, cannot see any questions in the chat. Do we have any?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes,
if you want,
Pauline.
Stefan.
Yes,
thanks a lot, Claire, for this talk. I have one stupid question, just because I don't know about flu and vaccination, and one more about the modeling. The first one, naive question, is why vaccination is not allowed for flu in birds?
So yeah, it's a very important question. So it's not allowed in some countries because in some endemic countries this vaccination is allowed. For example, Vietnam, Indonesia, Egypt. So it's not allowed in France and in European countries because the avian flu, I mean, the serotypes H5 and H7 of avian flu have a potential zoonotic impact, so they can be transmitted to humans. And if birds are vaccinated, it depends on the vaccine applied. But it can be difficult to make the distinction between the birds which are protected by the vaccination or birds which have been infected by the disease. And if we have infected birds in the country, it links to a large number of restriction, economic trade restrictions, so with a high economic impact. So for the moment, it's very difficult to vaccine birds against avian flu, especially H5 and H7, in countries where the disease is not endemic.
Okay. And I have a question because that you have a slide where you talk about the effect of maternal immunity when you consider it or when you do not consider it in the model. And it was quite surprising when you remove the effect of maternal antibody, then you have almost a yes-no effect. So like as if you have a threshold effect or something like that. Have you any idea of why, when you do not account for maternal immunity, you have this so abrupt change in the outbreaks or no outbreaks in the simulation?
I think here the main aspect is the fact that we tested it on broiler, and the lifespan of broilers is very short. I mean, it depends on the production, but if we are in indoor production, it's only 30 days and up to 90 days for the free-range production, organic production, for example. So it's very short lifespan. So the impact of maternal immunity in the protection during the entire life of the bird is very important for this kind of production. So I think it's the main impact of the presence or absence of maternal immunity in the protection of birds.
Okay, Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You also had, I think you did some model calibration because you had outbreak data. So could you just elaborate on that? How you performed that?
I'm sorry, Stefan. Could you please repeat?
I think you had. I think you mentioned in the talk that you had outbreak data that you calibrated the model against.
Yeah.
Was that so? How did you do that?
So yes, indeed. So we used the 2016-17 episodic event and the number of outbreaks during this event to calibrate our model. So we started with basic value for the transmission rate and for the detection delay. Mm-hmm. And we scaled these different these two parameters, and we run the simulation. So of course, without vaccination, 100 times, and we did it for 10 different scaling for each of the parameters. And we selected the scaling where the final numbers of outbreaks was the one we wanted to reach. So it was 70 outbreaks. I don't know if it answered your question or.
Yep, thank you. Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you. So we have one question from Elisabetta also.
Yeah, thank you, Claire. It's a question related to the previous one by Stefan. So concerning the parameter values, I'm not sure I understood finally if you still have some uncertain parameters in your model, and if you performed I don't know, uncertainty analysis, and which are these ones, if they are, and how do you think they can influence the outputs?
So yes, we have some, and we conduct a sensitivity analysis on the main parameters. I mean, all the transmission, all the parameters, epidemiological parameters. But yeah, I didn't present it in my talk, but yes, we did it.
Okay, so and then once you found which were the most influential ones, then you these ones were calibrated on data, or did you fix them at plausible values, and how did you manage this?
We mostly we fixed it to reach this level of outbreaks. Okay. This final level of outbreaks to be able to compare all different vaccination protocols.
Okay, because I thought this calibration concerned only two parameters, transmission.
Yes. How can I say that? Yeah, but it was the main parameters concerned by the sensitivity analysis.
Okay, so the transmission rate and the detection delay.
Mm.
Okay, thank you.
How fast is an outbreak if you get it into a production system? Are we talking like days before almost all birds are sick, or?
I'm sorry. Could you please?
Yes. So if you get an outbreak in one of these production systems, how fast is the outbreak? Are we talking like days before all birds are
detected?
Yes.
Yeah. It's in days.
Yeah. So it's not like a slow. It's not a slow process when it's.
No, it's quite fast. Yes.
Yep.